in 2013. Like any other day, that afternoon too was filled with the heat of the sun as people walked along the pitch-covered road. Just a little ahead, in the middle of the street, a crowd could be seen gathering, and gradually curious onlookers began joining one by one. With time, the crowd grew larger, and in the middle of it, everyone discovered a 17-year-old boy in a school uniform lying unconscious on the road. Many thought the boy might have collapsed due to the intense heat of the sun. Someone placed a hand on the boy's body and realized that he was no longer alive. To be certain, a few others checked his throat and wrist, in other words, checked his pulse, and confirmed that the boy had indeed died. His lifeless body lay on one side of the road. After his death was confirmed, someone from the crowd phoned the police. As usual, after a short while, the police arrived. They immediately dispersed the curious crowd, cordoned off the area following legal procedures, and began searching the boy's shirt and trouser pockets, hoping to find some identity or address. But after much searching, they found nothing except an address from some district of North Bengal inside his bag. The police then sent the body for an autopsy, that is, for a post-mortem, to a renowned medical college. Shortly after, the body reached the medical center. There, a doctor examined it one last time and sent it to the morgue on a stretcher. Within a short time, the mortuary assistant arrived. He was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and a stubbled beard. At that moment, he was completely intoxicated, as mortuary assistants usually are. Before cutting a body, they often consume a large amount of intoxicants. The mortuary assistant got ready for the postmortem, but the duty doctor was still absent. A staff member of the medical college came and informed him that the doctor would be a little late. Since the mortuary assistant was very experienced, he thought of starting the dissection without the doctor, reasoning that if he separated the organs, the doctor could later just inspect them quickly and finish the work in less time. With that thought, he began cutting the body. While cutting along the middle of the throat, the mortuary assistant suddenly found stone. Because it was covered with blood, its color wasn't visible. He washed it in a bucket of water nearby and discovered it was a blue-colored stone. The stone looked quite valuable. Unable to control his greed, he slipped it into his trouser pocket, thinking he could sell it later to buy intoxicants. Just as he was about to finish cutting the body, the duty doctor arrived at the morgue. Taking his time, the doctor inspected the various organs and then said to the mortuary assistant, "I have understood the cause of the boy's death. You can finish sewing up the body and then leave. I'm going now." Saying this, the doctor left the morgue room. The mortuary assistant began stitching up the body. At that very moment, he heard the sorrowful sound of a man crying. The cry was so heart-wrenching that anyone hearing it would feel their chest breaking in grief. The mortuary assistant paused his stitching, thinking to himself, "I've worked here for so many years. Never have I heard or seen anything like this. So why suddenly am I hearing such weeping? Maybe today I've taken too much intoxicant. That's why I'm hearing nonsense." Talking to himself like this, the mortuary assistant returned to stitching the body. Just as he was about to finish, he clearly heard a man's voice speaking to him in a very gentle manner. "Please return what you have taken. Otherwise, there'll be great harm." Startled, the mortuary assistant stopped stitching and began sweating in fear. Gathering a little courage, he asked, "Who? Who is speaking? Who?" Before he could finish, the male voice spoke again, "Return what you have taken. Otherwise, there'll be great harm." This time, the mortuary assistant became even more terrified. But trying to calm himself, he muttered, Yes, today I must have taken too much. That's why I'm hearing these voices." Still trembling, he tried to focus on stitching while thinking, "No, I'll sell this stone and buy intoxicants. I'll definitely take it, no matter what." He again concentrated on the stitching. But as soon as he did, he began to feel as though there was another presence inside the morgue besides himself. The sound of the crying grew clearer, echoing from ear to ear, from his left ear to his right, then from his right ear to his left. Suddenly, the crying stopped, and the room fell into pin-drop silence. But then, breaking that silence, The mortuary assistant heard voices from all four corners of the room, all saying at once, "Return it. Please return it. Do not take it away. Return it here." Hearing all this, the mortuary assistant grew restless and kept telling himself, "All false, all false. I am hearing wrong, hearing wrong." Muttering like this, the mortuary assistant somehow managed to finish stitching the body. And out of fear, he quickly covered the body. Then, placing it inside the cold chamber, he hurriedly left the morgue. After a while, the police arrived to know whether the autopsy had been completed. Seeing that the postmortem was done, they completed all the medical paperwork and handed over the body to the ambulance so it could be sent to the address found in the boy's bag. For the first time in his life, the microbus driver placed his hands on the steering wheel of an ambulance instead. In his very first trip, he had to carry a corpse for about an hour and a half's journey. Clearing all the formalities at the hospital, the ambulance driver and his helper set off with the body exactly at 10 p.m. The first destination of the body was the police station of the boys' area. From the hospital, it was about an hour and a half's drive. As far as the eye could see, there were vast open fields and farmland. On both sides of the paved road stood rows of tall trees. At night, under the glow of the ambulance headlights, the entire road created a magical atmosphere. After driving a little while, the ambulance driver heard a faint whisper. It wasn't clear who was speaking or what was being said, just whispering. He paid closer attention and then heard a male voice in a suppressed, sorrowful tone, reaching his ears. "No matter what happens on the road, please do not stop the vehicle." The ambulance driver heard this whisper several times. Unable to trace the source of the sound, he asked his helper sitting beside him, "Hey, are you hearing some whispering sound?" His helper looked at him, quite surprised, and replied, "No, not at all." The driver said, "I feel like someone is whispering, saying, 'No matter what happens on the road, do not stop the car.'" Hearing this, the helper said, "Brother, on this lonely road at night, there's nothing but the sound of the wind. You're new at driving an ambulance, so maybe your mind is playing tricks on you. I haven't heard anything at all. It must be your imagination. You just drive calmly. There's no problem. It's only a short way." Hearing the helper's words, the ambulance driver too considered it a delusion of his mind and resumed driving normally. After driving some more, the driver noticed two people standing on both sides of the dark road, raising their hands for help. As he looked that way, from the small window between the driver's cabin and the patient's area at the back, he heard tapping, and again that sorrowful male voice pleading in a tearful tone not to stop the car. This time, the plea sounded clearer to him, but he noticed that his helper beside him was sitting quite calmly, not noticing those two people at all. So, without stopping, he passed by the two standing on the road and drove forward. After driving a little further, the driver noticed those same two people again, standing by the roadside, just as before, raising their hands for help. But this time, both the driver and the helper saw them together. At that moment, the driver again heard that sorrowful male voice saying, "I beg you with folded hands, please do not stop the car." Still, the driver mentioned to the helper that he felt like stopping. The helper said, "Brother, don't stop the car. On deserted roads at night, many robberies happen this way." But the driver, seeing that there was a woman with them, decided to stop the vehicle and approach them. The driver and the helper noticed that the two people standing by the road were a middle-aged man and woman. The man stepped forward and said they were husband and wife, and just a little while ago, the woman's mother had passed away. So, standing by the roadside, they were looking for a vehicle to travel. The driver and the helper now looked more closely at the woman and noticed that she was wearing a beautiful dark blue sari. Both the driver and the helper were surprised to see this. Her mother had just died, yet she was dressed so beautifully in a dark blue sari. The man then said, "Brother, right now I have some urgent work, so I cannot go with her. Please take her with you. Whatever the fare is, I will pay you." The driver replied, "But the problem is there's no space in front of the ambulance, and at the back, there's the corpse." Before the driver could finish, the man interrupted, "Oh, no problem. She can go with the body. Her mother has died, so in her heart now, there's no fear at all. Please, take her with you." The helper then got down, opened the back door, and the woman got inside the vehicle. The man paid the fare and began walking back the other way. The driver once again started driving the ambulance. After a little while, both the driver and the helper heard sounds of a struggle from the back of the vehicle. It seemed as though two people were fighting over something inside. The vehicle was swaying a little here and there because of the scuffling. At the same time, the driver again heard that sorrowful sound. In that male voice, once more in a tearful tone, someone kept saying, "Who is it that you have let into the vehicle? Please make the woman get down from the car. Make her get down." The words were spoken in such a sorrowful tone that the driver could not ignore them. Still, from inside the vehicle, the light sounds of scuffling continued. Amidst this, he stopped the car by the roadside. As soon as the car stopped, the scuffling sound from the back also stopped. At that very moment, from the back, the woman spoke angrily. "What is this? Why have you stopped the car?" Whatever it is, just as you are about to mumble something, right then the woman became more furious and said, "Didn't I tell you my mother has died? Even then you are keeping the car. Stop like this. Drive quickly." After the car started moving again, once more came the sounds of scuffling. At one point, the woman from the back said, "Stop the car. I will get down here." Hearing the woman's words, the driver stopped the car. The driver and helper were surprised to see that there were no houses on either side of the road. On both sides were only farmland. The helper got down and opened the back door, and the woman stepped out of the car and instantly vanished into the darkness of the farmland beside the road. After this, they drove on without any trouble and reached the police station of the boys' area at midnight. And with the help of the police, they went to the boys' home with the body. When they opened the ambulance door to unload the corpse, they saw fresh blood dripping from the boy's right leg. That blood had soaked the ambulance stretcher and dripped onto the floor. Everyone was astonished at this sight, because the boy had died long before. After so much time since death, normally blood in a dead body clots. For such fresh blood to drip from a dead body was truly terrifying and almost impossible. Looking for the source of the blood, they found a round wound near the thigh of the boy's right leg. It looked exactly like the kind of wound that happens when a leech keeps sucking blood for a long time. Just one wound, and still from fresh blood was dripping. After bathing the body, putting on the shroud, and completing the funeral prayer, the burial was arranged at midnight itself. Since the burial was happening at night, the driver and the helper thought, "Let's finish the burial and then leave." When the body was lowered into the grave and bamboo slats placed, while the burial was going on, the driver and the helper stood a little away from the grave. Suddenly they noticed, a few graves ahead, a boy of 17 years was sitting on the ground, staring directly at them. And he was crying continuously. The driver thought maybe he was a friend of the deceased boy. That's why he was crying like that at his friend's death. But after a while, he noticed that the boy was looking only at him and crying, not at anyone else. Looking carefully, he saw that nobody else was even noticing this boy. The matter then seemed very frightening and strange to him. When the burial was completed and they started on their way back home, the driver noticed in the light of the vehicle's headlights that same boy who was crying in the graveyard was now sitting by the roadside, staring at him just like before and crying. From time to time, as they went, he kept seeing the boy sitting by the roadside like that. The driver then became very frightened. Only one question was in his mind. Why was he seeing the boy again and again, even after passing him? And why was the boy crying while looking only at him? Thinking these thoughts, after going a little further, once again he saw the boy by the roadside, staring at him and crying. As soon as the driver looked at the boy, the helper screamed. Hearing the helper scream, the driver looked ahead and saw that a speeding cargo truck was coming from the opposite direction. Before he could realize anything, it hit. With the accident, both the driver and the helper lost consciousness instantly. But just a few moments after losing consciousness, they regained it again. The driver and the helper saw that nothing had happened to them. The truck that had just crashed with them had no trace at all, and everything else was completely fine. After a little while, bringing himself back to normal, the driver, still a bit scared, started driving again. A short distance later, he again noticed that same boy sitting by the roadside, staring at him and crying continuously. As soon as they looked at the boy, just like before, they again had an accident. Again, for a few moments they lost consciousness, then regained it and found everything fine and normal. This time, both the driver and the helper were extremely terrified. The driver slowly started driving again. After some time driving quite normally, they both noticed a huge tree branch had fallen across the road in front of their ambulance. Seeing this, both of them got down from the ambulance and ran forward. A little ahead, they saw a tea stall, and at the stall a few people were sitting and drinking tea. When they ran toward that direction, the people stood up. At the tea stall they asked, "Why did you leave your vehicle in the middle of the road and run here like this?" The ambulance driver then said, "Didn't you see? A tree just fell on our vehicle." The tea seller, along with everyone else, meaning the rest of the people, stared at them in surprise. The shopkeeper said, Where did a tree branch fall? Everything is perfectly fine. I saw you two getting out of the vehicle. What suddenly happened? You hit the brakes hard in the middle of the road. Then both of you got out of the vehicle and ran straight toward us." Hearing this, both the driver and the helper looked back, but they could not see any sign of a fallen branch. Their vehicle was standing still in the middle of the empty road. They spent the rest of the night in fear at the tea stall and left in the morning. Because of this terrifying experience on his very first day as an ambulance driver, he quit the job the same day after returning home. But the incident seemed not to leave him. Almost every night, he began to see a strange dream. In the dream, he saw a man over 50 years old come to him, angrily complaining that on that night, he had stopped the vehicle and taken that woman inside despite being told many times not to. The man kept demanding to know why he had done so. The driver had never seen or known that elderly man before. At one point, he saw that the man was asking him to return some unknown object. Soon after that, the ambulance driver would wake up from his sleep. He could not understand the meaning of the dream. The first day, he took it normally, thinking that since so much had happened the previous night, maybe that was why he dreamt like this. But the problem was, every night he began to see the same dream. Again and again, that man over 50 was asking him to return some unknown object. After almost 2 weeks of seeing this dream without finding any explanation, he was compelled to go to the boy's house, the house where he had delivered the dead body that night. There, he saw that the boy's father had passed away and had been buried beside his son. He described the face of the old man from his dreams to a few people around, asking if they had ever seen such a person. Everyone disappointed him by saying they had never seen anyone like that. Getting no information there, he returned home. But the man from his dreams did not leave him. So he became desperate to find an explanation for what was happening to him and to uncover the mystery of these events. Accordingly, he set out for the medical college hospital as soon as possible. By the time he reached the hospital, it was already quite late at night. There he began looking for the doctor who had done the boy's post-mortem. When he found the doctor, being a little busy, told him to wait outside. When the doctor came out and asked him what had happened, the driver looked with astonished eyes behind the doctor. Before he could say anything else, he fainted and collapsed on the ground. The doctor was startled by this sudden scene and began calling nearby people for help. While the doctor was looking around to call others, his eyes fell behind him, and there he saw a man in khaki clothes, also lying unconscious. With the help of nearby people and hospital staff, the doctor carried both of them inside and laid them down. About 3 hours later, the ambulance driver regained consciousness. Excited, he rushed to the doctor and asked him where the man was, the one who had been standing behind the doctor. Not understanding, the doctor asked which man he was talking about. The driver replied, "The man in khaki clothes who is standing behind you. Where is he?" The doctor was somewhat surprised because the ambulance driver and that man in khaki clothes were never acquainted with each other. Of this the doctor was sure, because he knew the khaki-clothed man. He knew very well that man was always intoxicated. Yet the ambulance driver was so desperately searching for him. The doctor kept his thoughts hidden in his mind and took the ambulance driver to the bedside of that khaki-clothed man, asking, "Is this the man you were asking about?" The ambulance driver said yes and stared at him fixedly, then asked about his identity. The doctor informed him that the man lying on the bed was the hospital's mortuary assistant. The doctor, still unable to make sense of anything, asked the ambulance driver to explain everything. Before he could say much, the mortuary assistant lying on the bed regained consciousness. As soon as he came to, he looked at the ambulance driver and began asking in surprise who he was and why he kept appearing repeatedly in his dreams. Hearing this, the ambulance driver was left speechless. After a while, he regained his composure and, rather irritably, began asking the mortuary assistant the same questions. Listening to their conversation, the doctor stood dumbfounded. The ambulance driver then asked the mortuary assistant why he had kept forbidding him to stop the vehicle on the road again and again. Hearing the ambulance driver's words, mortuary assistant became quite excited and in turn asked the ambulance driver a question. Mortuary assistant question was why he kept telling him to return that stone again and again. Hearing mortuary assistant's words, the ambulance driver replied, "Stone? What stone? What stone are you talking about? I don't know of any stone. Whatever you were saying to me, I couldn't understand anything. It didn't make any sense to me." Hearing the conversation between mortuary assistant and the ambulance driver, the doctor this time requested mortuary assistant to explain everything openly. Mortuary assistant then, addressing the ambulance driver, began to say, 2 weeks ago, a 17-year-old boy came to the hospital. That is, his dead body was brought in. That day you were a little late in coming, so I began cutting the corpse all by myself because I already had experience of dissecting over 200 bodies. While cutting the body, when I started to cut around the neck, I found something hard inside the throat. To see what it was, I washed and cleaned it thoroughly with water and discovered that it was a small stone. Its color was blue. The stone seemed very valuable to me, and so I decided to keep it with myself. Since I sometimes take drugs, I thought if I sold the stone it could cover my addiction costs for quite a while, and I was secretly happy. But from the moment I took the stone, I began hearing a male voice in a crying tone, repeatedly telling me to return the stone. Because I was intoxicated at times, I didn't give it much importance. After finishing the autopsy and going home, I went to a jewelry shop to sell the stone. I thought the stone would fetch around 30 to 40,000 taka. But after going to the shop, the jeweler offered me only 5,000 taka for the stone. Not getting the price I expected, I came back home and kept the stone in my drawer. The next day, I went to another jewelry shop, but there too they offered me only 5,000 taka. This time, without thinking of anything else, I sold the stone for that 5,000 taka. After selling the stone, I was somewhat happy in my mind because at that moment 5,000 taka was a lot of money for me. From the money, I spent 300 taka, and before sleeping at night, I put 4,700 taka into my drawer. The next morning, when I went to the drawer to take money before going out, I saw that there was no money in the drawer. And in the place of the money, that same blue stone was kept. Seeing this scene, I was utterly shocked and kept thinking about how the stone had returned to my drawer. Nothing was making sense to me, because unless I myself had brought it, there was no way it could be there. Even then, I called my wife and asked her if someone had come and left the stone. But immediately I remembered I hadn't given my address to anyone. So how could anyone bring the stone here? Thinking all this, I again went to the first jeweler to sell the stone. As soon as I reached the jewelry shop, the jeweler and some others caught me and tied me up. When I asked them the reason, they told me that last night I had come in front of their shop, called the jeweler, and threatened that if he didn't return the stone, I would break his shop. The jeweler said that very night he quickly came and, after returning the stone to me, I gave him 4,700 taka. When he asked me about the missing 300 taka, I apparently slapped him twice and left with the stone. Not believing the jeweler's words, I asked to see the CCTV footage. I agreed, but to my surprise, no footage of that night had been recorded by the camera. Then, after convincing the jeweler, I again gave him the stone, took 4,700 taka, and went back home. Before returning home, I spent another 300 taka, and before sleeping that night, I again put the money into the drawer. But in the morning when I woke up, once again the stone had returned. Taking the stone, I again went to the jeweler. This time the jeweler had his men beat me up. When I asked the reason for the beating, he told me that, just like before, last night I had come, called him, and demanded the stone back. This time the jeweler had brought 2 more men with him so that I couldn't hit him. But apparently, I again returned him 4,400 taka, and when he asked about the rest of the money, I alone beat up the jeweler and the 2 men with him and left with the stone. This time I didn't sell the stone again. From the moment I got the stone, I began having dreams at night. And the person in the dreams was none other than you, the ambulance driver. You kept coming into my dreams and telling me to return the stone. I kept ignoring all this, thinking it was just my imagination. But every day, I kept seeing you in my dreams, asking me again and again to return the stone. Why are you doing this to me? Who are you? What do you want from me? The ambulance driver couldn't make any sense of mortuary assistant's words, and he too shared his own dreams with mortuary assistant. All this time, the doctor had been silently listening to their conversation. Now he began to speak, saying, "Ever since the post-mortem of that body, small strange incidents have been happening with me as well. From the day I performed the post-mortem, almost every night I saw a 16, 17-year-old boy with his ring finger cut off sitting on my balcony crying and looking at me, signaling with his hand as if he was calling me to come to him. Even though I tried to distract myself, thinking it was just my imagination, I kept seeing her again and again. She told me that something of hers had gone missing from a morgue and that it was with someone connected to this hospital. She kept crying and begged me to find her missing thing. Almost every night, I saw her sitting on my balcony in the same state, weeping and repeatedly requesting me to find her lost item. After hearing the 3 of their accounts, a kind of haze formed in all their minds. None of them could understand what was happening to them. Unable to make sense of anything, they sought the help of the police. When they went to the police station and asked for information about that corpse, the police directly refused to give them any details and said that after examinations and investigations, if they found out something, they would let them know. And if necessary, they would be called. When the police asked them why they were seeking such information, they told everything openly. But the police laughed it off as superstition and dismissed them, asking them to leave the station. After that, all of them returned to their own homes. But the strange thing was that after that day, neither the ambulance driver nor the doctor experienced any further incidents. However, from that very day, mortuary assistant's life began a horrifying dark chapter. Returning home, mortuary assistant again started seeing dreams. This time he saw in his dream a woman wearing a deep blue sari. The woman repeatedly forbade him to give something to the ambulance driver and told him that if he gave that item to the ambulance driver, then a great harm would happen. After a while, he again saw in his dream that the ambulance driver appeared and was asking him for something, saying that if he did not give him that item, then that woman in the deep blue sari would come first and cause him great harm. But mortuary assistant could not understand at all what the woman and the ambulance driver were asking of him. In fact, the ambulance driver and that woman were asking mortuary assistant for the stone. But he simply could not figure out what they actually wanted from him. Why mortuary assistant could not remember about that stone, I will come back to that in a moment. From then on, mortuary assistant saw the same dream every day. The woman in the blue sari kept warning him again and again and demanded that item from him, saying that if he did not give it to her, she would cause him great harm. A few days later, while returning home after shopping from the market, mortuary assistant's wife died in a road accident. Then mortuary assistant realized that because he had not given that item, perhaps the woman in the blue sari had killed his wife. After his wife's death, her funeral prayer was held and she was buried. Some days later, on the night of his wife's kokanee, He saw in his dream that the woman in the sari came to him again, asking for that item and saying, "There is still time, give me the thing. Don't ever give that item to the ambulance driver. Give it to me, and if you don't give it to me, then you will lose your daughter. If I want, I can kill you too." Hearing this in his dream, mortuary assistant woke up in fear and thought to himself that he must not let any harm come to his daughter. So, he decided he would no longer work in the morgue. After that, he began spending the whole day at home with his daughter. But a few days later, when mortuary assistant had to go out for some necessity, he took his daughter along. After finishing his errand, while talking with his daughter on the way back home, suddenly when they reached the very place where his wife had met her fatal accident, he could no longer hear his daughter's voice. Turning back, he saw that his daughter too had had a road accident in that same spot and had died instantly. Seeing this scene, he was utterly shocked. His mind seemed to stop working completely. With unbearable pain in his heart, mortuary assistant buried his daughter and returned home. That night in his dream, mortuary assistant again saw the woman in the blue sari. She told him, "I had warned you repeatedly and told you to give me the item, but you still didn't give it. Once again, I'm telling you, give me the thing. I killed your wife and daughter, and I can kill you too. Remember that. Your family is already finished. If you die too, everything will be over. I can kill you if I want, but I'm not killing you because I need that item. That item is with you. If you want to survive, give it to me. And beware, never give it to the ambulance driver." As soon as this dream ended, he again saw the ambulance driver in his dream. The ambulance driver said to him, "Please, give me the item. 2 members of your family are already dead. If you want to live, then please give it to me. That woman will kill you too." But mortuary assistant could not understand at all what those 2 people from his dreams were asking of him, nor how he could possibly give them that thing. These thoughts nearly drove him insane. So one day, he shared everything that had happened with one of his friends. After hearing mortuary assistant's words, his friend advised him to see a Huser and said that he knew one personally and could arrange a meeting for him. Even though I tried to distract myself, thinking it was just my imagination, I kept seeing her again and again. She told me that something of hers had gone missing from a morgue and that it was with someone connected to this hospital. She kept crying and begged me to find her missing thing. Almost every night, I saw her sitting on my balcony in the same state, weeping and repeatedly requesting me to find her lost item. After hearing the 3 of their accounts, a kind of haze formed in all their minds. None of them could understand what was happening to them. Unable to make sense of anything, they sought the help of the police. When they went to the police station and asked for information about that corpse, the police directly refused to give them any details and said that after examinations and investigations, if they found out something, they would let them know. And if necessary, they would be called. When the police asked them why they were seeking such information, they told everything openly. But the police laughed it off as superstition and dismissed them, asking them to leave the station. After that, all of them returned to their own homes. But the strange thing was that after that day, neither the ambulance driver nor the doctor experienced any further incidents. However, from that very day, mortuary assistant's life began a horrifying dark chapter. Returning home, mortuary assistant again started seeing dreams. This time he saw in his dream a woman wearing a deep blue sari. The woman repeatedly forbade him to give something to the ambulance driver and told him that if he gave that item to the ambulance driver, then a great harm would happen. After a while, he again saw in his dream that the ambulance driver appeared and was asking him for something, saying that if he did not give him that item, then that woman in the deep blue sari would come first and cause him great harm. But mortuary assistant could not understand at all what the woman and the ambulance driver were asking of him. In fact, the ambulance driver and that woman were asking mortuary assistant for the stone. But he simply could not figure out what they actually wanted from him. Why mortuary assistant could not remember about that stone, I will come back to that in a moment. From then on, mortuary assistant saw the same dream every day. The woman in the blue sari kept warning him again and demanded that item from him, saying that if he did not give it to her, she would cause him great harm. A few days later, while returning home after shopping from the market, mortuary assistant's wife died in a road accident. Then mortuary assistant realized that because he had not given that item, perhaps the woman in the blue sari had killed his wife. After his wife's death, her funeral prayer was held and she was buried. Some days later, on the night of his wife's kokanee, he saw in his dream that the woman in the sari came to him again, asking for that item and saying, "There is still time, give me the thing. Don't ever give that item to the ambulance driver. Give it to me, and if you don't give it to me, then you will lose your daughter. If I want, I can kill you too." Hearing this in his dream, mortuary assistant woke up in fear and thought to himself that he must not let any harm come to his daughter. So, he decided he would no longer work in the morgue. After that, he began spending the whole day at home with his daughter. But a few days later, when mortuary assistant had to go out for some necessity, he took his daughter along. After finishing his errand, while talking with his daughter on the way back home, suddenly when they reached the very place where his wife had met her fatal accident, he could no longer hear his daughter's voice. Turning back, he saw that his daughter too had had a road accident in that same spot and had died instantly. Seeing this scene, he was utterly shocked. His mind seemed to stop working completely. With unbearable pain in his heart, mortuary assistant buried his daughter and returned home. That night in his dream, mortuary assistant again saw the woman in the blue sari. She told him, "I had warned you repeatedly and told you to give me the item, but you still didn't give it. Once again, I'm telling you, give me the thing. I killed your wife and daughter, and I can kill you too. Remember that. Your family is already finished. If you die too, everything will be over. I can kill you if I want, but I'm not killing you because I need that item. That item is with you. If you want to survive, give it to me. And beware, never give it to the ambulance driver." As soon as this dream ended, he again saw the ambulance driver in his dream. The ambulance driver said to him, "Please, give me the item. 2 members of your family are already dead. If you want to live, then please give it to me. That woman will kill you too." But mortuary assistant could not understand at all what those 2 people from his dreams were asking of him, nor how he could possibly give them that thing. These thoughts nearly drove him insane. So one day, he shared everything that had happened with one of his friends. After hearing mortuary assistant's words, his friend advised him to see a Huser and said that he knew one personally and could arrange a meeting for him. Mortuary assistant told his friend that he wanted to meet that Huser because he could no longer bear these things. The next morning, mortuary assistant's friend called him and said that he had spoken to the imam of his area's mosque, and the imam wanted to meet mortuary assistant in the afternoon. In the afternoon, mortuary assistant fell asleep for a while, and in his dream that woman appeared before him and said, "No, no, don't you ever do this. That Huser cannot help you. If you want to live, give me that thing and don't go to meet that Huser. It's useless." Seeing the dream, mortuary assistant woke up in fear. Thinking that he should meet the Huser as quickly as possible, he left the house in a hurry to go to him. But on the very road where his wife and daughter had died in a road accident, coincidentally he too had an accident, and from below his knee he lost his entire leg forever. People nearby lifted him and took him to the hospital. While in the hospital, mortuary assistant saw in his dream again that same woman in the blue sari coming to him and saying, "I had forbidden you to go to the Huser. For this mistake of yours, you have brought harm upon yourself. I told you before, if I want I can kill you too, but the most necessary thing that I need is with you. That is why I am not killing you. Give me that thing." After the accident, mortuary assistant stayed in the hospital for about 3 days. Meanwhile, mortuary assistant's friend, upon hearing the news of his accident, quickly came to the hospital with that mosque's imam. The imam came and wanted to know everything that had happened or was happening with mortuary assistant, and mortuary assistant told him everything. After hearing about the dream from mortuary assistant, the imam consoled him and stepped outside for a while. A little later, he went back in, and what he said left everyone almost speechless. He called mortuary assistant's friend and said, "Your friend has been afflicted by black magic. Not only that, at this moment his condition is not very good. Arrangements for his treatment must be made as soon as possible. After that, he went to mortuary assistant and asked, "Do you have any stone in your house?" A blue-colored stone. Hearing this question, mortuary assistant was truly startled. Because even though he had described everything in detail, he had not mentioned the blue stone to the imam. Then how did he know about the stone? While he was thinking all this, the imam again asked him the same question, and then mortuary assistant started telling him everything from the beginning. After hearing from mortuary assistant about the stone, a shadow of concern appeared on the imam's forehead. Meanwhile, when Dr. Utpal Biswas returned from vacation and learned at the hospital that mortuary assistant had had an accident, he went to his cabin and found the imam. After hearing everything from mortuary assistant's friend, he understood that the matter had taken another turn. So he went to the imam and began to tell, one by one, everything that had happened to him and to that ambulance driver. After hearing everything from the doctor, the imam understood very well what was actually about to happen. So without delay, with the doctor's permission, he took mortuary assistant home. As soon as he stepped into mortuary assistant's house, he realized that some invisible force was preventing him from entering, one stronger than himself. So he shielded his own body and that of mortuary assistant and his friend and tried to enter. Still, only in the imam's case was there some kind of resistance. Later, according to the imam, the matter was exactly like two magnets. Just as the like poles of two magnets repel one another, so too was he being resisted from entering mortuary assistant house. Fearing the situation might worsen, he sent mortuary assistant and his friend inside to bring the stone out. But as soon as they picked up the stone inside the house, the door began to close on its own. Even after trying in his own way, the imam could not bring the situation under control. So he contacted his teacher and with his help managed to bring mortuary assistant and his friend out of the house. However, even then he could not take the stone in his hand. Some invisible power was preventing him from holding it. But nothing is above the word of Allah. So through various spiritual measures he can find the stone inside a white box. During this incident, the imam, through his own methods, came to know the entire story. But he wanted to find the people whose hands were behind these events and hear the story from their own mouths. So without delay, he inquired about the house of that 17-year-old boy and set off in that direction. On the way to that area, the imam saw a boy on the street who was staring at him with tearful eyes, continuously crying. Yet even on that sorrowful face, there was a sweet smile. At first he did not understand the matter, but after noticing it several times on the way, he understood everything. When he reached his destination, he went straight to the boy's house and spoke with his mother. But there he was utterly astonished, because only 3 days earlier, the boy's mother too had left this world. The matter seemed to the imam both painful and mysterious. At the graveyard, he saw that the graves of the father, mother, and son were right next to each other. In just 1 month, 3 members of the same family had died. Except for the boy's death, the other 2 seemed almost like natural deaths. After that, the imam visited their graves, and not understanding, he again contacted his teacher. His master said, "Place the stone box in between the graves of the parents and set it free. The rest you will see there." After the imam did everything according to his master's words, what he saw was enough to send chills through his body. He saw that after releasing the stone, from the side of the grave came a mournful cry and sounds of weeping. Seeing this, he became somewhat frightened. However, when he tried to greet with salam, an invisible being responded to his greeting and began to speak from beside the grave. The voice was like that of a man. He said, "Walaikum assalam. How should I thank you? I don't know. In the end, you have delivered me to my destination. But those for whom I fought so much are no longer alive in this world." Saying this, again there came a suppressed sound of crying. The imam tried to console him with a few words and asked who he really was and what relation he had with them. After a while, that invisible male voice gave his name and went on saying, "I am a jinn. This blue stone was my dwelling place. My master had engaged me in the service of these 3 persons. They were extremely good people. In fact, my father had been the guardian of their ancestors. By lineage, the responsibility of protecting them also fell on my shoulders. I tried many times to protect them, but because of some traitors, I lost everything, even this family. Hearing all of this, when the imam asked about the traitor, the jinn asked him for 3 days' time and said he wanted to bring those traitors before everyone through the imam. Before the imam left for home, the jinn asked him to leave the stone in a certain place, and the imam did as the jinn said and returned home. On the first day, no problem occurred, but on the third night, the imam saw a dream. He saw before him a woman wearing a blue sari and a man wearing a black Punjabi. Their faces were completely blurred. He saw those two people force someone to hang by the neck, and then, laughing loudly, they left. Then, right at the time of the far azan, his sleep broke, and he sought refuge with Allah from such bad dreams, spitting 3 times to his left side. The day went quite well. That day, around 6:30 in the evening, while returning home after leading the Maghrib prayer, he heard someone greeting him with salam from behind and stopped. The voice sounded very familiar. He realized it was the jinn from inside the blue stone. Since 3 days had passed, he had come to reveal the traitor. But first the jinn said, "Huzer, there is bad news. That mortuary assistant died early this morning. His body is still hanging from the ceiling fan." Hearing this, the imam remembered his dream from the early morning. He hurried home and phoned the police to report everything. The police recovered the sweeper's body. But during the investigation, the police began to suspect the imam because no one in the area knew about the sweeper's death. Yet how did the imam, from far away, know all the details? They arrested the imam and took him to the station. Even so, by giving many details and describing the supernatural incident, he asked the police for permission to be left alone in an empty room for some time. After hearing everything, the police gave him one last chance to prove himself and left him alone in a room. After entering the room, the imam sat down and called the jinn, asking about the traitors. This time the jinn said, "Those responsible for all of this are the boy's uncle and aunt. They're the ones who imprisoned me, and they're the ones who killed me. They wanted to capture me and use me for evil purposes. But by Allah's infinite mercy, I survived. That uncle and aunt, after killing everyone for their own benefit, chose to hide themselves in that boy's house. You must arrest them as soon as possible with the help of the police, otherwise they will harm more people." After hearing everything from the jinn, the imam bid him farewell and told the police. Still, the police were unwilling to believe. The imam requested them one last time to trust him, and the police finally understood and went out with a force. Unbelievable as it was, the truth came out when the police raided the house and found 2 people practicing black magic there. From them, the police recovered 2 books, a human skull, and a pot containing 3 ring fingers. 2 fingers were from the right hand and 1 from the left. The police collected everything, arrested them, and returned. Gradually, through the imam, all the mysteries began to be uncovered. The things heard from the uncle and aunt were horrifying. It was beyond imagination how vile people could be. The uncle and aunt confessed to the imam and the police, and I will now begin to write it exactly as they had said. Uncle, at that time I was very young. Being the youngest in the family, I did receive more affection, but when it came to gifts or fulfilling wishes, my elder brother was valued more by everyone. Between us 2 brothers, father loved the elder the most. Whatever he wanted, father gave him, but in my case it was not so. So, since childhood, resentment began to build in me. The main reason behind such love and care for the elder brother was that he was the heir to the blue stone. The blue stone was the protective talisman of our family. My grandfather once kept jinns and helped them in many ways. So as a gift, in every generation 1 jinn would be assigned as a guardian. My father too had one, and since in the next generation my elder brother was the eldest, he became the next owner of the jinn. Until then, everything was fine, but before his death he gave a part of the property to me and the rest to my elder brother. His idea was that since after his death my elder brother would look after me, the larger portion of the property should stay with him. But I could not accept this at all. I tried in many ways to grab the property, but because of that blue stone's jinn, it was never possible. After that, my brother got married and even had a son. Then I also got married. After marriage, I saw my wife reciting different spells to cure sick people and make them well. So, by listening to her, I too became interested and started learning. At one point, both of us started practicing herbal healing and continued to learn and practice powerful spells. Meanwhile, my nephew was also growing up, and once again my hope of getting the property began to fade away, because I had no sons or daughters. He alone was the heir to the property and the blue stone. So when I discussed this matter with my wife, she told me to bring my nephew to our shop. From there, we used to cure people through spiritual healing. I also spoke with my elder brother and asked him to send my nephew to the city, assuring him of good schooling. Believing me, my brother sent my nephew, and every day after school I used to bring him to the shop and try to attract him by showing our works. One day, in our plan, we became successful. My nephew became very interested in curing people miraculously through spells and wanted to learn healing from us. That was our golden opportunity. In the name of teaching him the work, after some days we told him not to bathe for 3 days and to sit in a dark room with the lights off and the door locked. We also forbade him to speak with his parents. Our main intention was to let the jinn possess him and then make him sign over the properties in his name to us. But even after 3 days, nothing happened through our witchcraft. Seeing this, both of us were quite shocked. We could not make any sense of it, because according to this rule, no one could escape the jinn's possession. Then how did he escape? Thinking of this, suddenly a question struck my mind. Wait, doesn't he have the blue stone with him? Just by thinking of it, my heart trembled. So, the next morning, after he left for school, my wife and I searched his entire room and finally found the blue stone in a box on top of his cupboard. That was it. What else did we need? At last, all our dreams and wishes were about to come true. Thinking that in my mind, I took the stone and went out. After almost a week of effort, we were able to overpower the jinn inside the stone and bring it under our control, and by reciting kufri spells, we turned it from a protector into a destroyer. It was bewitched in such a way that it no longer had control over itself. We trapped it inside the stone, made the stone invisible, and hid it inside my nephew's water bottle. Our main plan was to bring my nephew and make him sign over the property to us, and even if the stone got stolen, this way we would not get exposed. But I decided to perform kufri spells on the stone and kill my nephew through it. That way, with his death, no suspicion would fall upon us, and eventually my brother's share of the property would also come to us. No sooner thought than done. After drinking the water bewitched with kufri, the stone stuck in my nephew's throat in the middle of the road, and he suffocated to death. The rest of the events you all already know. But we were never actually hiding. We were living near my brother's house all along and made them drink our bewitched water so that they would forget about us and not inform the police. On the night my nephew died, in the hospital, I only saw the ambulance driver and the doctor. My sole purpose at that moment was to find the blue stone, but despite many attempts I could not trace it. So I stole the doctor's handkerchief, and that same night I performed black magic on him. As for the ambulance driver, I sent the jinn with my wife to stop the car on the road and collect something for the ritual. That night, the 2 people the ambulance driver saw, among them, the woman in the blue sari was my wife, and the man was a jinn in disguise. That's what helped him cross the road so swiftly. That same day, my wife came across an old manuscript that said, if, after the death of an entire family, the ring finger of the right hand of the sons and the ring finger of the left hand of the daughters were collected, then the power would double. So that night my wife brought from the back of the ambulance a piece of the driver's shirt, my nephew's right hand ring finger, and blood from his right foot. After that, one by one, we performed black magic on the doctor and the ambulance driver. The main purpose of the black magic was that whenever we spoke with someone through them, we could collect all the information about that person. We turned this into a method of searching for the blue stone. In this way, after many attempts, about 2 weeks later the ambulance driver came to the medical college and spoke with the doctor. Then they met the mortuary assistant, and at that time, I came to know that the mortuary assistant had stolen the blue stone. So, after that day, we removed the spell from the doctor and the ambulance driver and cast the spell instead on the mortuary assistant in order to get the stone back. But here a problem appeared. After my nephew's death, when the spell was broken, the jinn trapped inside the blue stone regained its own power. But it was impossible for him to move around on his own. So whenever I went into the undertaker's dreams and told him to return the stone, that jinn from the stone would take another form and come to him, forbidding him from giving it back. In dreams, the blue stone was mentioned again and again, but after waking up, under the influence of the blue stone's jinn, even though every part of the dream could be remembered, the mention of the stone itself would be forgotten. We tried many ways to scare him, killing his wife and daughter, giving him all sorts of threats, yet we still couldn't succeed in getting the stone. When we couldn't succeed this way, we decided to kill my sister-in-law to strengthen our power. I had already killed my elder brother long ago while searching for the stone. Feeling the need for the ring finger, I had already removed my elder brother. Now, to bring the stone into my possession, the last person left was my sister-in-law. So one day, seizing the opportunity, through our pet jinn, we also killed her and cut off the ring finger of her left hand. We used to be present at every funeral so that no one would suspect us. And after taking the finger, such a coating was applied on it that if anyone looked with the naked eye, they could never tell. In this way, we had almost reached the very last stage of fulfilling our selfish desires, and we even started living in that very house. But no one knew about us staying in that house. After so many attempts, at the last moment, when the jinn was freed from the blue stone, everything turned into chaos. Yes, we sat down to make one last attempt to find stone. But in the end, we had to accept defeat before religion. This was the statement given by that boy's uncle and aunt, and it was also the final part of the incident. But the most astonishing thing was that within only 2 days, both of them were found dead inside the jail. On entering, it was seen that except for their heads, every limb of their bodies had been twisted and reversed. This supernatural event, along with the mysterious death of 3 members of the same family, just before the news was about to break out, shook the police deeply. So, for their own safety, they declared it as a suicide.